Psychedelics have become a massive topic of conversation, from medical research and mental health clinics to wellness retreats and even chocolate bars. Some call them miracle cures. Others warn of real risks. Today, we're talking about psychedelics and marijuana, the promises, the dangers, and what we can do instead to support focus, emotional balance, and a genuine sense of peace. What are some of the signs parents should look out for? Why do scare tactics fail? Dr. Winter will share his perspective on the topic. Welcome to StreetSmarts MBA, the podcast where we teach you how to be an adult. I'm your host, Yafa. My guest today is Dr. Will Winter, a psychiatrist who's double board certified in both general psychiatry and child and adolescent psychiatry. He's been practicing for over 20 years and has also taught and supervised other doctors at places like NYU, Beth Israel, and Yeshiva University. Quick disclaimer, this is not a medical advice. It's a conversation. Dr. Winter, thank you for being here. It's an honor.
Thank you for having me. It's also an honor.
Well, the first question on everyone's mind is, why are psychedelics suddenly so popular?
It's a good question. Not sure if they're suddenly popular. I think it goes in waves. But definitely they are, it seems to me, a lot more popular these days. I think things go in and out of fashion, like fads. But the question is, why does it keep coming back? Because these things have been around for a long time. It's not new. Like, for example, LSD has been around in the 60s. Psychiatrists were experimenting with it with their patients, some of them. It was causing some pretty substantial effects, psychosis. It was bringing on schizophrenia in people who weren't yet schizophrenic, who had a propensity perhaps towards it. It was not, in retrospect, a very good thing to do. You know, if you're a doctor, you want to help people, you don't want to hurt them. But nonetheless, that was a time in history. Now I'm hearing, for example, that people are experimenting with microdosing LSD. Why? And I think it has to do with a lot of these meds give people, I guess you could call them meds versus illicit substances, which has its own connotation. Whatever you want to call it, it's fine with me. But basically, I think what happens is each of these substances, meds, gives people a sense of relief from sadness, but it goes well beyond that.
What kind of drug is it? Is it a natural herb? Is it a synthetic creation? How did it even come about?
So LSD was synthesized in Switzerland. So you got Swiss cheese. If you want your brain to be Swiss cheese, you could do LSD. I'd rather the Swiss chocolate. That also has its beneficial medicinal effects. I'm sure people could tell you about that. But yeah, it was synthesized. And then the doctor that created it 5 years later decided he wanted to try it for himself. And what happened was he ended up getting that kind of high feeling that people get, that feeling, I guess it's described as hallucinations and mind expansion. Now, what does that mean, mind expansion?
They love calling it that, mind expansion.
It's altering. It's altering perception. I mean, when you have something like hallucinations, that's an alteration of perception. Perception is, you touch something or see something, whatever it is, and then your brain has a lot of real estate dedicated towards processing and coming out with something that makes sense to you and to me. That's perception. Animals, we all have this, thank God. It's a wonderful gift. And why alter it? Why? Because some people, my opinion, some people are suffering, some people are sad, some people are in great emotional pain, and some people are maybe bored, maybe a sense of ennui, and they want something to fix it. And so, this is, I guess maybe I'm already kind of building a certain point of view in here, which is fair enough. I mean, that's my impression. It's not like, wow, this is a miracle drug, because if it were, we would have known that by now. I mean, how many years do you still have to study this stuff? Oh, let's study it. Let's get a grant. Again?
Interesting.
Yeah.
So LSD is making its comeback. I'm surprised to hear it.
Microdosing
is
like the term I'm hearing about. And yeah, it's a problem because if it were completely benign, it'd be one thing. So let's say somebody goes on a trip or whatever, and then they come back and like, wow, that was fun. And you kind of save a lot of money for whatever, $10 or whatever it costs on the street. You go on a trip instead of having to get on a plane and do the whole thing.
You go on a psychedelic trip, you mean?
A psychedelic trip, yes. You feel like you've been somewhere and you come back and like, wow, that was fun. But you have other effects, basically. The thing that got me when I was reading up on this, because it's one thing to have experience with it, with patients discussing it with you, and it's another also to read up on it. When somebody has a propensity towards schizophrenia, towards psychosis. Psychosis is when somebody sees things that aren't really there, hears voices, hears things that aren't really there, hallucinations, or delusions, false beliefs, stuff that's like out there. And you have a lot of people that are kind of on the cusp, people who are a bit paranoid maybe, people who are into conspiracy theories. Probably a lot of people on YouTube who are clicking like on a lot of videos that there's like conspiracy theory stuff. It seems to get all the likes. But if somebody has a propensity towards it, it's one thing, but they don't have to actually go over the line and become schizophrenic. You don't have to become psychotic. I was telling my parents the other day, and I told them a story about how I went to the dentist when I was in my 20s, early 20s, and he did x-rays like they do. And when you look at my wisdom teeth underneath the gums, so the teeth are all straight like this, and underneath the gums, the wisdom teeth are like this, fully formed, ready to like knock down all the pins. All of my wisdom teeth are like that. They're all like ready to like destroy everything. So the dentist said to me, what do you want to do? Do you want to take them out? And, you know, I had a friend who recently had his wisdom teeth. That was the thing. People were getting their wisdom teeth out. I said, you know what? Let's just see. You never know. Maybe it'll just stay like that. So now I'm 54, 30 years later, and if you take x-rays, it's the exact same picture. The teeth haven't moved, which is what it is. It's good. In my opinion, it's great. But you could have that with mental health as well. In fact, you could have that in all ways, but for sure with mental health. You could have people who have a propensity towards having a psychotic break, but they may never get there. And they may have very good lives and not be ill and not, you know, be dysfunctional, etc. Why risk what you have with a substance/medication like LSD? Why? And then, of course, when it comes to a topic like this, because people seem to have an investment in wanting to say, oh, but it helps a lot of people. Oh, but when I did it, I didn't have that. Or, oh, but I had a good experience. Okay, fine. You're taking a lot of risk. Why? You know, when I have patients come to me and I have to prescribe a med, it could be like an antidepressant, something that's relatively benign. But nothing is benign, but relatively, and okay. I mean, a question I get from parents, lots of times I work with kids a lot, parents will say, well, is it going to change my child? Is it going to change his personality, like the essence of who he really is? Or, you know, if it's an adult, is it going to change who I am? People are so concerned about it when it comes to medications prescribed. But when it comes to something like LSD, some people are like, yeah, let's do this. And I'm like, what?
Well, I think a lot of it has to do, it becomes such a social thing. And another thing, sometimes the pain is higher or stronger,
Right,
more
right.
intense than
That could be.
the
Yeah.
foreseen risks that might come with it.
Right.
So that could be one of those things. And
That's
people
true.
are willing to do anything to just run away or numb the pain. So
Yeah.
I guess my next question is, what are the major reasons people turn to those drugs that you found? And we're not just talking LSD, we're talking mushrooms. Ketamine has become such a hype.
Yeah.
So what are some of the reasons people turn to them?
Well, I think it's like you say, people tried, you know, the SSRIs, maybe some other antidepressants, and after so many weeks and months of not getting better and really suffering and not knowing what else, they'll say, can I do, or they won't say, they'll just do it. They'll just tell me like one day, like, oh, by the way, I'm microdosing.
Wow.
I'm like, oh, that's interesting.
Where are they getting it?
You have to ask them. I don't know.
Well, that's okay. We're,
Maybe on the street, they know somebody who knows somebody. I don't know.
wow, because it's not regulated.
Right.
We don't know where it's coming from. So it could be anything when you're taking such a big risk, just trusting someone that this is what it actually is.
Well, you're trusting that it is what it is. I mean, when we go to the supermarket, everything is sealed. You know, every product we take is like completely like, when you get a Coca-Cola that is, you know what's in it. You've had it before. The thing is sealed up. It's super dependable. But if somebody is saying, oh, here's, you know, whatever, a tab of LSD or something, or whatever the term is, or a small dose, how do you trust that person? What's in it? What's the dose?
Right. That's scary.
It's
really
a lot of risk. I think a lot in life as we get older is you kind of learn what's the risk benefit here. And by the way, even though I'm kind of canning LSD, and I'm probably going to can all the other ones too, nothing is all bad and nothing is all good. Everything, you know, has its trade-offs. It's like if you get married, he or she is not going to be perfect. There are going to be trade-offs. And so for any relationship, this is a relationship with a substance. You're going to probably see that there are some benefits, and then there are going to be some drawbacks.
That's pretty powerful, the relationship with the substance.
And by the way, and that's a problem with the psychedelics, it's not like, for example, if somebody comes to me and they're depressed, but maybe not terribly depressed, but maybe significantly depressed, they're here for a reason. I give them an SSRI. They hopefully get an improvement with it. If they stop it, or when they stop it at some point, because they're consistently improved, when they stop it, it's not like their brain is destroyed. There's no long-term bad outcome or
Really?
bad
With
effect.
SSRI, that there's no long-term brain damage?
Why would? If there were, I couldn't prescribe it.
Interesting. And you would say that with psychedelics there is brain damage?
Okay, so now let's get, yes, I would. Let's get to the kind of thing you've heard from friends of friends kind of stuff over the years. So I'll say what I heard, and this is not from the office, this is not about my patients or anything. I'm just going to tell you. I remember I heard that if you do LSD X number of times, it has a permanent effect. You'll have some kind of damage. You'll have like permanent hallucinations or problems after that. Your brain won't be the same.
It alters it.
It alters it, like permanently. And, you know, if you did it 20 times, and, you know, when I was younger, I heard like if you did it 21 times or something, that's it. And then some people said 7 times. Where would these stories come from? Just out of the thin air? I mean, people must have seen somebody doing something, and that after, something not right about them after that, and it's a problem. And these kinds of people, medications may or may not help after that.
But sometimes it could only take one time, right?
It could. Possibly.
Yeah.
I'm not taking that risk. I'm not making any promises.
Right. Wow, okay. So what do advocates claim?
Somebody may say something like, well, I'm able to function. That anxiety that I always have is not there when I microdose or something, or their sadness is improved. But what if the trade-off is it knocks a few points off of their IQ? What if the trade-off is...
Yeah, no one talks about that.
Right.
No one talks about
Right.
knocking off a few points of your IQ.
Right. Right. Being like a little slower, being a little bit like foggy, memories kind of, and I'm not talking about like the next day after LSD. I'm talking about like, you know, weeks later, months later.
What about mushrooms? It's such a natural thing.
Right.
And there's a lot of microdosing now with mushrooms too.
Right.
Someone feels a little sad going through a divorce, they turn to those little edibles.
Why is it that these things have a street value? LSD has a street value, that one I Googled. I didn't Google mushrooms. I'm sure it does have a street value. Why is that certain things have a street value and certain things do not? People are getting an intense pleasure. You see, something that a regular psychiatric antidepressant, a medication, an antidepressant, something like that doesn't really give you all that much. It's like drip, drip, drip. It's like drip irrigation versus like
Interesting.
fire hose, bam. So, you know, if mushrooms act similarly to serotonin, there's a much bigger bang for your buck when you have mushrooms than when you have one of these meds that I would prescribe or psychiatrists would prescribe.
Mm-hmm.
So the question is, what impact does that have long-term on the brain? What impact does it have short-term? What impact does it have long-term? What benefits? What drawbacks? And back to the idea, you have to always think, what's the trade-off here? What's the risk? What's the benefit? Is this a smart decision?
Okay. So when you have war veterans
Yeah.
turn to these things,
Yeah.
and I know they have master's programs focusing on psychedelics
Right.
nowadays, and they swear by it. There are programs about how healing it is, how it's able to help veterans function again. So you're saying that's where the trade-off, you're looking at the trade-off. Some people can't function without it, right?
Okay.
But then there comes a point where
If that's
we
all
have
you
such
got
a
and
low
there's nothing
tolerance
else.
for any frustrations that no one can function without some sort of a psychedelic.
You see, the problem is, Yafa, I think it's a bit of a slippery slope between somebody who really, quote unquote, needs it and somebody who doesn't. And somebody who's just kind of like, kind of bored, nothing to do. Okay, I got some time, let's do this. I've heard good things. I think what I've seen is most people who are doing certain things, by the way, ayahuasca also, like,
Big one.
it's a big one.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people doing ayahuasca these days. In general, like take-home thoughts on all of this stuff is you've got the studies. They're doing more studies on this and everything else. You've got reports from people, anecdotal. You've got somebody who says, oh, I did this and this was great and whatever. And then you have your own experience of seeing those people and seeing if they've changed a little bit. You're smiling.
I have a lot to say about those people.
Oh, okay.
Not to judge.
So tell me. What are your thoughts?
I've had a few closer friends who have started dabbling or doing it regularly, actually, the ayahuasca. We're no longer friends. Not because I'm judging them for it, but because we're not connecting on the same level. It's like the spark in their eyes is gone.
Yes.
I can't connect with them. When they're looking at me, it's like they're just numb. Now, they say, okay, so psychedelics or whatever, mushrooms or whatever, they swear that it opens up certain channels in you, but it also shuts down a few channels, okay?
Yeah.
It numbs a few channels for you to able to not have that anxiety maybe.
Right.
So, and that's an issue. But in New York City, they have all these retreats, and it's become such a hype, ayahuasca specifically, to go on these retreats. And then they come out of it feeling that they're more enlightened, that they have climbed to a certain level. Everyone else is down there. They haven't experienced what I've experienced. That could be the reason that I'm not connecting with some of those people. But for me, that spark in the eyes is so important because I've worked with kids with special needs. I could see when they have that spark, when they can understand what I'm saying, what I'm trying to communicate to them. When I see people who've done ayahuasca, that spark is gone. They might have a smile on their face, but that specific energy that I'm talking about, that which I'm very sensitive to, is gone or dulled. So that's been my experience.
Yeah. I've seen that too.
And also, I love Peruvian food. I go to a Peruvian restaurant and I would always ask, oh, you guys from? We're directly from Peru, and they still have an accent. And I ask them about ayahuasca, and they say, no, it's a dangerous thing to do.
Right.
So they wouldn't do it.
Right.
And they said it's like it's a tourist attraction. People go to Peru to go into the woods to experience it. And I think with Gwyneth Paltrow with Goop, she made all these things popular.
Wow,
With
I
all
didn't know.
these psychedelics and all these little retreats. She talks about it like it's some luxury or a high society thing now,
By the way, I have another thought, which is not
Yeah.
a novel thought. I've
Yeah.
heard this said, but I think it's worth repeating. So if you're going to feel good, generally speaking, you the old-fashioned ways, you kind of have to earn it. Maybe you put in a lot of hard work, and then you got a good result, and you have that pleasure of happiness that, wow, this worked, or this is great. But when somebody takes a substance and kind of cheats and gets a pleasure, it's not really getting into life. You know, I think at any moment, it's kind of like this idea of a life drive versus a death drive. And at any given moment, you're making a choice. Am I getting into life or am I getting out of life?
We talk about marijuana
Okay.
because
Right.
it's become such a normal drug. It's natural, but a lot of people underestimate it.
Okay, this is a good topic. I'm happy you brought it up. People want to fast track it and they want to take control. But this thought that it's natural, being that it's good, come on. Oxygen, we're all addicted to it, but you could overdose on oxygen. Water, you can overdose on water. So who's in charge of the dosing? Are you going to go to your AI and say how much of this marijuana is the right amount? I don't know. I remember when I was in med school, there's this stuff called foxglove. Foxglove is this natural substance from a flower, and it's, I think, digitalis, which is prescribed for people with arrhythmia. You know, their heart isn't beating effectively. It's great if it's at the right dose for the right problem and carefully monitored. But the therapeutic window is very, very narrow. If it's a little too much, you could kill yourself, not on purpose.
Okay.
So this is the idea. When it's natural, people think, oh, it's natural, it's safe, because they think of like grass in the backyard, that's natural and that doesn't hurt anybody. And then they feel like they could take as much as they want because it's benign. And this is just a fallacy. These are automatic kind of conclusions that people come to, and it's wrong.
Interesting. Okay. So on the topic of marijuana, Dr. Will, how does weed affect memory?
In general, weed is not good for memory. You're working against yourself. People will always do this with me, probably with you. They'll say, oh, but I know somebody who was valedictorian of his university, and he was a big pothead. But maybe he would have been better without it.
How does it affect mental health, short-term, long-term?
I think of things like an equation. You have like a bunch of things that go into that equation, a bunch of variables. Now, some people could do marijuana, or some people could do a lot of things that are not so good. Like, for example, smoking cigarettes. Like George Burns, he lived to 100 or something. He was a big smoker. But generally speaking, it's not a good idea. We all know that. So marijuana generally is very, not good for people, and it's kind of bad for people often, or especially over the long term. So
Why?
I think memory is affected. That kind of like burnout that you see, it's not helping you. It gives you a pleasure when you use it, but long term it's not helping you, and relatively short term it's not helping you either. Now, you could, say, yeah, but, and I'm like, okay, fine. Like, there's always going to be an example of somebody who it does help. But generally speaking, and I'm going to say this, most people are using marijuana recreationally. They don't need to. They have the time. They feel like getting a bit of a high or whatever, maybe with a friend or friends, maybe not. And then the question is, are they self-medicating versus not? Because self-medicating, that term, gives people a pass. That's fine. I'm not here to say bad boy, bad girl. I'm here to say, what's the risk? What's the benefit? Is it a good idea? Are you going to lie to yourself? Because a lot of people lie to themselves. And then the question is this life drive or is it death drive? That's an important one. Anything that takes you out of life is not life drive. If you're basically interacting with yourself, it's not really life drive. If you're interacting with others and you're helping others, you're giving to the world, you're involved, they're giving back, it's like a whole thing. That's relationship, that's life drive, that's taking responsibility, that's work, that's effortful. When people kind of self-stimulate with marijuana or whatever it may be, that's not necessarily life drive. In fact, it's probably death drive. Somebody could say, yeah, but I know somebody who writes music and he does it best when he's high. And that music will be music we all love. And if he weren't high, it wouldn't have happened. All right. Again, I'm not here to arrest people. I'm just saying, generally speaking, it's general. I understand the word generally, is that it's probably not a good idea. Generally, it's not life drive. Generally, it is not life drive.
Dr. Will, in today's world, there's so many things that kids are susceptible to and parents don't know about. What are some of the signs that parents should look out for to detect whether their children are, in fact, using drugs?
So marijuana, you look for the physical signs, the bloodshot eyes, the stupid grin, the smell on the clothing. These are pretty much, very useful clues. Some things don't have a smell, so then that becomes harder.
Mm-hmm.
But you could look for indirect clues, like, for example, blowing off school or grades going down precipitously out of the blue. Usually when it comes to kids, when their grades are affected, that's like a big red flag, like something is wrong here. So not to say that somebody could be using marijuana and it doesn't affect their grades and they're still using, but it is important to see if the grades are going down, there's a problem and you have to figure out what it is. It doesn't necessarily, it's not drug specific. It may not be drugs, it could be something else, but whatever it is, it's a problem. It has to be clarified what it is so you could start making changes and help the child.
Mm-hmm.
So
again, for parents, why do scare tactics fail? Because a lot of times that's what they end up doing. They scare their kids. I had a conversation with someone who's a recovering heroin addict and very well put together person who's doing well for himself now, comes from a decent family, no major trauma there. So I asked him, how did you even end up using heroin? And he said, when I was 7 years old, I remember my mother sitting on my bedside and lecturing me on the evils of drugs and what it can do for you, or what terrible things it can do to your mind. And he said, that got me really curious. He said, that's when I decided I really want to try it.
it had a paradoxical effect. I mean, that has to do with his relationship with his mom, I think. Maybe it would land differently from a different mom to a different son. But I think you kind of do a little trial and error like you do in life anyway. I don't know. I have little kids. I don't know what would work with them, but I probably would try different things. But I do agree with you. The scare tactic generally is not good because it tends to work in the immediate and then it wears off pretty quick because you can't be in a constant state of fear. And then you're like, yeah, whatever. I think especially in the teenage years, there's this like desire to do kind of like irreverent kinds of things. I'll give you an example. The subways, I saw like either was a sign or I heard an announcement, probably an announcement saying, don't stand on the subway roofs or whatever, like don't surf the subways because you could get hurt or killed.
Yeah.
And there's this guy, I remember seeing him on one of the TED Talks, and he had like lost some limbs and whatever, and he was a bright guy, but he made a very poor decision. So you have to do everything. I think you have to appeal to their common sense. I think you have to figure out why somebody would be motivated to try something. Is it that their friend is doing it and they want to look a certain way or cool in front of that friend, or they want to be included, or they don't want to not be included, or why is it so important to them? Like, there's a lot to it. It's not just, I want to try this.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's worth really kind of case by case figuring out all those particulars. And then you try your best. And sometimes children, often they'll do exactly, it's biblical, right? God says to Adam, don't eat from this tree. What does he do? The next line, he eats from the tree. So that's the challenge.
But let's say you have a child.
Yeah.
What would you, and they come to you and talk to you about it, what would you tell them about weed, about alcohol? What would you tell them? So they tell you why. Why, Daddy? Why should I stop? What would you tell them? This is for parents who are struggling to have those conversations and they're trying to convince or educate their children on what not to do and what are some wiser choices.
You have to throw a lot of stuff at the wall and see what sticks.
Mm-hmm.
That's just how it is. So if you have somebody who's kind of concerned about their grades, that means they care about their brain. So you say, listen, what's the story? Do you know what this is going to do to your brain? Is it going to be a problem in a few years? Is it going to be a problem in 10 years, in 20 years? I mean, the stats are the average person who's like way up there in age is very likely to have, at least some dementia. Why would somebody want to mess with that? Like, everyone hates dementia, but everyone's okay with everything else. LSD's cool, pot's cool, whatever. What? Why? Because you do it to yourself and you get dementia earlier. The effects effectively is like, and people will say, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. I have data, I have studies. And that's the other thing I wanted to tell you. If you go through medical journals, you'll see, if you really read with a discerning eye, if you go through all the particulars, number one, most of these studies have a lot of holes in them. And number two, if you want to show that something is good, you'll find your study, even if it's 1 in 100. Oh, but this one shows that it is good for you, and blah, blah, blah. All right. You're always going to find studies. By the way, I wanted to mention, I saw in the AMA about ketamine. Ketamine basically there's a big study, and they said, yeah, it doesn't help with depression. It's not a good treatment for depression. Zero benefit as far as an antidepressant. And yet everyone's talking about ketamine to treat depression. I'm not here to ruin people's ideas of things. There's probably somebody out there who's like, this guy is a quack. I take ketamine. It works for me. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Fair enough. But generally speaking, according to that study, nada. The flip side of that is also a problem, because if you don't believe any studies, then you've got no foundation. You have nothing to stand on. You can't move forward in life. So the bottom line is you have to just look at as many studies as possible. It's like free speech, that idea. Get as much information as you can comfortably, and then you kind of figure out what makes sense based on that. If the majority of the studies are showing this is no bueno, it's no bueno. Leave it alone. Don't give me a yeah, but. I'm tired of that. I'm just tired of it.
So what for parents? So
what would I tell my child who wants to do pot? I'd say, listen, first of all, I have to know the story at that point, where they are as far as like how they think, but that could be really, really hard, because if somebody wants to do something, it's very hard to basically tell them, no, you don't want to do that. It's like the Jedi mind trick doesn't work. So then it just becomes like, well, you have zero insight into this. I, as a parent, know that this is not a great idea for you. There's studies, back to that idea, there's studies of marijuana and the developing brain, and it's not good. And there are studies of marijuana and long-term effects on circulation and heart attack and stroke, and the numbers are not good. Basically, when it comes to studies, a lot of people pick and choose which study that they want to kind of hang their hat on. And the answer is that, if you go into the sticks, if you go into the weeds, you'll find a lot of these studies are poorly done. Let me ask you something. I don't know if you remember this. Remember they said, I'm laughing, and they said that a glass of wine is good for you. It's good for your heart.
Right, the Mediterranean diet. Yeah.
And that was for like 10 years. And I have a friend who's a cardiologist who said, yeah, a glass of wine's, he was just quoting that, and he's a cardiologist. And now suddenly they came out like a year or two ago. They said, well, actually, no amount of alcohol is healthy for you. Now, I'm not saying stay away. I'm not like one of these clutching my pearls type of people. But I'm just telling you, know what you're doing. If you're having a glass, you're not helping yourself. You're just not. So, but how long did it take for that study to be debunked? It took like 10 years or something. And now everyone's like, why? I think it was Bill Gates who said, oh, by the way, yeah, alcohol isn't really any amount of alcohol. I don't know who died made Bill Gates a scientist, but that's what it is.
Tony Robbins says that too.
Well, good.
He doesn't drink at all.
Good.
Yeah.
That's fine. Like, the bottom line is, you didn't have to tell me that when they first started with alcohol. Oh, one drink is okay, and it's good for not that it's okay, it's good for your heart. It's good for your circulation.
Yeah.
I've had alcohol. It's not good. Even one drink, I feel it. I feel it in my... You say, well, it's not called placebo. It's called nocebo effect, when you get a negative... it's like placebo, but in the negative. Okay. So they'll say, well, you're just imagining that. Fair enough. But I could tell you, when I have alcohol, I feel it in my vessels. I feel it. My heart beats faster. That's what alcohol does. It makes your heart beat faster. It's a diuretic. There's less volume in the system. Your heart beats faster, probably to compensate for that fact. So now, is one drink enough to do that? I don't know. But the bottom line is, you didn't have to be a rocket scientist to know that that was a bogus thing. And the whole world was saying one drink is okay. Not just okay, good. It's good for you. It's healthy for you. One drink a day is good for you. Get out of here. So I could tell you now that what I read is marijuana is worse than smoking, tobacco, cigarettes.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
It's worse than smoking when it comes to heart attacks, 25% worse, close to 50% more likely to get a stroke. Cigarettes are terrible for your circulation. Awful. People talk about lung cancer. It's the other stuff that'll kill you, and lung cancer.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like an equal opportunity employer for like all the bad things, essentially. But somebody will say, well, a little smoking is good. It helps with memory. There were studies, many studies going back, that said smoking actually, the upside there is that it helps, people who are smokers are less likely to have dementia or as bad. Really? I'd like to see more of those studies.
It calms you down. I know that's like when people step out for a smoking break.
Yeah.
It's like they need to step outside. It's like a little pacifier for them.
Okay.
It calms them down. I think that's where those studies are coming from. Now, if this is what you are relying on, that's one little benefit of it. That's all. It calms you down. That's all. All the other stuff, the fact that it's a toxin, no one talks about that in that study, I'm guessing.
Right. It is a toxin.
The ketamine study too.
So they did a ketamine infusion, and
this is a recent study.
yeah.
Okay.
And the control group had Versed, which is basically like a benzodiazepine, like Valium or Xanax, because when people have ketamine, one of the effects is similar to that. So people in the control group needed to know that they weren't just taking a placebo, that it wasn't just saline solution. So half the group was given ketamine infusion, the other one was given Versed, and the answer was ketamine was no better than Versed as far as treating depression. Versed didn't treat the depression. So the answer is it didn't do anything. But, the journal that it's in is a very respected journal. So that's a bit of a shortcut people will do when it comes to reading studies, is because they kind of rely on the editorial board of these journals. And certain journals have better reputations, and I guess they have stricter editorial boards that they have to because basically what you have is essentially doctors reviewing hundreds and hundreds of studies, and they have to decide what merits being put in their publication. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So JAMA, the Journal of whatever, mm-hmm. my memory, but that's considered a very that's part of the AMA. That's probably the top as far as journals go, mm-hmm. medical journals.
So that brings me to another question. What is good for the memory? What can we do to improve our memory?
So happiness could be a solution to that, because you can't think of more than one thing at a time, even if it's like a microsecond from one thought/feeling to the next. If you're happy, you can't be anxious in that moment. So the anxiety is not going to block your memory. That's good if you could be relaxed and happy, generally speaking. Another thought is this: interest precedes thought. If you're interested in something, you're going to be able to think about it. And the opposite is true as well. If you're not interested in something, if you got zero interest, not only are you not going to think about it, you're not even going to perceive it. So if you're interested in something, it'll help you lay down that memory. If you're able to, in life, be interested as much as possible, your memory is going to be better, because you're going to lay down the memories and you're going to enjoy recalling them. And even if you don't enjoy it, if it's important to you, you'll recall them. But interest precedes thought. Interest precedes laying down memories. And therefore, it helps ultimately because you're able to recall what you were able to lay down as a memory. You can't recall something that you were unable to lay down as a memory. These are non-medicine treatments for memory. When it comes to, we're talking about a little bit about dementia. When it comes to that, that's a whole different story, because it is what it is. You have some physical changes in the brain that, despite your best, you can only do what you can do. But in the meantime, most of us aren't there yet. So you don't want to assume that, oh, I can't do anything to help myself. You could help your memory. Sleep is good. Sleep is great. How do I know that? What study do I have to quote to you? I'll find studies to show you that.
Of course.
Now, what happens with the reverse? If you're underslept, why is it that years ago medical residents were not allowed to be abused? You know, when I say that, I mean abused by not letting them sleep, and by like not working more than X number of hours per week. They were forced. The program had to make sure that it was written in that they had a day off or an afternoon off to recoup, to sleep, whatever.
I mean, years ago, they don't do that anymore?
No, like when my dad was a doctor, they didn't have any restrictions. I mean, the residents just worked. So you would have a doctor working on you who was completely like falling asleep, possibly, because he was so underslept. My dad graduated in the 50s. I was a resident like in the 90s. But at that point, they already like, it was a new thing.
I have a prescription for your memory.
Please.
Lion's mane.
Okay. I think
It's a mushroom.
I think happiness is good for your memory. Meditation and hypnosis are things that people don't really think about, or maybe some people do, but I think that should be a lot more mainstream. I think that could really help with anxiety. I think it could help with depression. And you don't have to worry about medication side effects. It's great.
Right.
And you see results sometimes very quickly.
I've never done a hypnosis. I've done meditation, but hypnosis, you have to be susceptible to it, or are there times when hypnosis doesn't work?
Yeah, because really, ultimately, it's the person who hypnotizes him or herself.
Herself, okay.
Yeah. So what happens with guided meditation, we all know what that is. You have the meditation apps.
Mm-hmm.
You could probably go on YouTube. That's great. What it does is it gets you, if you allow it to, it helps you to relax. That's the whole idea of it. Now, the thing that makes something hypnosis is once somebody is completely relaxed, the person doing the guided meditation makes a suggestion. And so the suggestion could be something like, tomorrow will be a better day. Now, you're smiling. I'm not sure why.
I think I've just been hypnotized.
So-
I believed you when you said that.
Okay.
Yeah, I know you do hypnosis as well in your practice.
Yeah. So if you say that like just like this, I mean, you maybe got something out of it, but most people have blockages up, even though they'll say, yeah, I know. But when somebody's super relaxed and then you plant a suggestion that's in sync with what they believe is reasonable, they'll put their stamp of approval on it, and it will be very impactful. If I were to tell you something ridiculous and completely like not in sync with reality or with normalcy, every word has a what's normal, what's not normal. If I told you something like you're a monkey, like I remember seeing stuff like when I was a kid on TV, like these shows, and they put somebody on stage and they'd act like a monkey. Maybe there are other people who could do that. I can't do that. I wouldn't even try to do that. That doesn't stick. It has to be something that resonates with somebody. If I say to you, tomorrow will be a better day, that can resonate. That with a lot of people does resonate. And then if I tell somebody something ridiculous, it doesn't resonate and it doesn't stick. So I don't bother with that, of course. But that's the idea with meditation and hypnosis, is that you could help a lot when it comes to anxiety. And I think it's in our toolbox. That's our version of surgery. You know, that's the best we got. Most psychiatrists probably don't do it. And you don't have to be a psychiatrist to do it and to be good at it and to help somebody.
So if not drugs, what does help with trauma, anxiety, and depression?
And by the way, I'm not going to give you a blanket statement and say that something doesn't. It may be, it's not just one person. There could be many people that will write in the comments or whatever, well, I have PTSD and marijuana helps me, or I have seizure disorder and marijuana helps me. All right. Like, I'm not saying that it doesn't. I'm just saying generally, and using that word generally, it can be very problematic. So your question was, what does help with these things? A lot of different things help. When it comes to anxiety, there's all different meds, all different categories of meds that can be tried. A lot of them are not addictive. A lot of them are quite safe, relatively speaking. You have to go through the pluses and minuses with the person, the risks and benefits, potential risks and benefits, and then you make that decision together. But there are a lot of different med options for anxiety. There are a lot of different ones for depression. And then there are a lot of non-medical interventions. Exercise. I went for a swim this morning.
Amazing.
That's how I felt. You just put the word to exactly how I felt during the swim, after the swim. Now, I didn't push it. I didn't overdo it. Then I wouldn't have felt good. But I dosed it properly, or good enough, and I felt great. And I'm going to do it again tomorrow because I have the time. And I'll do it again the next day, as long as I have the time. And it's probably going to be one of the higher points of my day. But why am I bringing it up? Because I felt very amazing. I felt happy. Not super amazing, not like manic, but I felt damn good. Felt great. And that is a great way to treat depression. It's a great way to treat ennui. It's a great way to treat a lot of negative feelings. Something in your control, something that feels good if you, I guess, do it properly. If you splash around, I don't know if that's going to work. I think you got to put effort. So, but that's an example of not cheating. That's an example of like interacting with the gift of the day, the gift of the world. God gave you this pool here. Use it. Swim in that part of the world that I just gave you. Please enjoy this gift. Enjoy this day. Interact.
Dr. Will, you're a prominent psychiatrist here in New York. Everyone knows what accreditations you have. But when picking a psychiatrist for people who are struggling, for people who have kids who are struggling, what should they look for? How should they screen someone, whether it's an appropriate match for their child, for themselves?
First, I want to say that I could take issue with your noting that I'm a prominent psychiatrist. I may just not be so well regarded by some and maybe highly regarded by others. That's for them to decide. I think it's about goodness of fit. And that has to do with, that in French you say je ne sais quoi, that I don't know what it is, but you know it when it happens. So, yeah, I think when you have a parent and a child, both parties have to like the psychiatrist. Both have to trust and be comfortable, and not just be comfortable, but like the psychiatrist. So if the parent doesn't, that's not going to work. And if the child doesn't, it's not going to work. The child needs to be comfortable to share what needs to be shared in order for the psychiatrist to help. If the child is shut down or is just doing it because it's kind of like a punishment, some parents say, that's it, now you're going to have to go to the psychiatrist. It's like, why am I the punishment? Why'd you do that? So
I'm guessing that happens a lot.
It's happened. It's happened more than once. And it's a shame because, it shouldn't be a punishment. It should be a useful exercise that could be not just useful, but like really good. So the child has to want to be there. You know that the joke, how many psychiatrists does it take to change a light bulb? One, but the light bulb has got to want to change.
Oh, wow.
So I don't remember jokes. That's just one I remember. Obviously. So everyone's got to be happy with that psychiatrist. Does he or she have to be super smart? Probably not. Do they have to be super duper in any respect? Probably not. But they've got to be smart enough. They've got to be good enough to help. That's all. So if they're prominent, if they're not prominent, I don't care. I just want somebody who's doing their best, who cares, and that there's a good fit.
What do you prescribe the most? What's like your go-to drug that people are in need of? Because I know pharmacists run out of certain drugs.
Yeah, so I see a lot of kids with ADHD. It's a very big part of my practice. And so I'll write for stimulant medications. Stimulants are not psychedelics, but they can be abused. I'll write for somebody who has ADHD, usually first line, I'll write for a stimulant as opposed to a non-stimulant because the effectiveness is much greater than for non-stimulant options for focusing. Yeah, so I tend to write for a longer acting kind of stimulant, not Adderall, because that's very easily abused. Adderall, I'm laughing. I shouldn't. There's something, I don't know if you heard the term Diet Coke. So Adderall people, what they'll do is they'll crush it and sniff it, and they call that Diet Coke.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that being said, Adderall taken properly can be fantastic. It can be very helpful. It's not just something that's taken like improperly and abused. But nonetheless, I'll always try to prescribe not Adderall. I'll try to prescribe for at least, for a first shot, I'll try something like a long-acting one like Concerta, which is constructed in such a way that it's pretty much impossible to abuse. Although that also can be abused simply by just taking the month's supply like all in one shot or a lot of it. Obviously, there are ways you could take things the wrong way and hurt yourself with a lot of different kinds of medications, and not just psychiatric ones, by the way, of course. But I tend to like the ones that are harder to abuse. Concerta was created in such a, and now I'm going to sound like a commercial, but it was created, and it's been around for a long time. It's been around for over 20 years, probably over 25 years. But it was constructed in such a way that it's like you can't break it, and if you do break it, the active ingredients become inert. At least that's what they say.
Yeah.
That's what the people who make Concerta say. But I kind of believe it. I just don't see people abusing it. So, look, it's a big job. When you're prescribing it, you have to be very aware that people can abuse, and you follow things up closely, and you do your best. You do your best.
You're speaking of hypnosis. I just recently saw the movie Shallow Hell.
Oh, that's I love that. It's a great movie.
Where Tony Robbins, a hypnotist, puts the shallow hell under hypnosis and makes him view the inner qualities of a person because he was so shallow and only would see the superficial. Is that even real? Is that even possible to do that? To take something and he was able to see the inner light in them and find them so attractive. Is it possible to shift your perception to such an extent?
I believe so. I'll tell you why. Because everything is about focus. You're talking about focus a lot. Everything is about focus. You can choose to focus on one thing or another thing. Sometimes it's not easy because people have their own shtick. They've got their own stuff. So if Shallow Hal is finding things that are problems in people that are not really problems, that could be worked on, because if he gets better with himself, that's going to fade away, for example. What else? If you focus on something that you do like about somebody, even if they've got something you're not so crazy about, but you really are like focused on something about them that you find attractive, then that could get you past the superficial thing that you would otherwise be stuck on. So I think Shallow Hal probably could get past some degree of blockage if he gets to talk to the person, and if he likes the conversation, and if he has relatively few hang-ups himself. Now, obviously, it was a comedy. They made her to be really not attractive in her appearance and then very attractive in the dream, kind of. I don't think it works exactly like that. But you can kind of make big differences. In real life, you can help a lot of people with this stuff who are stuck. In my opinion, you can. And you could do that with hypnosis. Absolutely.
So you could help someone with addictions
Why
with
not?
hypnosis?
My aunt from the 1980s, I think it was, she was a smoker, and she was hypnotized to stop smoking, and it worked.
Just once? I
don't know if it was one time. Usually it's a few times.
That's really incredible.
Right.
Do you have any final thoughts to share or to impart on our audience?
I guess the key takeaways are, number one, nothing is all bad or all good. There are trade-offs, so that's one thought. Another thought is to realize that some decisions have no mercy in them. Like, let's say I decide to sleep in. There may be some mercy in that because people may be okay with that if I'm late, this, that. But if I choose to do something that could have some permanent results that are not good, there's no mercy in that. And, if you damage something and that's all you got, it's damaged. And we don't have many things. I know in the media, people constantly are being told that they, in the media's way, they tell people that they don't have enough money or they don't have enough whatever it is. It's all nonsense. What you have is the gifts that God gave you, for better or for worse, whatever they may be. That's what you got. You have your brain. Thank God it works. You have that. And you have time. However much we have left, nobody knows. We try our best. That's it. What else do you have? And then you have your relationships that you can build, which are up to you to build. That's what you got. So don't mess it up. Don't make a bad trade. Bottom line is, if somebody's going to choose to do a drug like LSD, which is like pretty heavy duty, and the risks are so high that they're giving to themselves now, and the trade-off is it's a zero-sum game. They're giving themselves so much in the moment, and they're taking away so much for the rest of their life. It's a very bad trade. It's not a good idea. So you have to take care of yourself. You have to take care of your future self. Very powerful, very important, very basic.
Wow. So after this conversation, I feel healed.
That's great.
Psychedelics or not, it's proved that, honest dialogue and connecting is really healing. So
Yeah.
that's another thing that heals, connecting and understanding. Thank you, Dr. Will.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for listening. If anything here resonated for you, anything from this episode, please leave a comment. Ask a question. We're here to figure this adult stuff out. So subscribe, share, like. It really helps the algorithm, and spread the love. Thank you so much, and we'll
Thanks,
see you.
Yaffa.
We'll see you next time.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.